It's time to awaken. In 1940, a Japanese diplomat named Chiune Sugihara sat by a small wooden desk in Lithuania, holding a pen that could save lives. Outside his window, a line stretched around the block. Hundreds of Jewish families fleeing the Nazi advance, desperate for a visa that could carry them beyond the reach of war. From Tokyo came a clear order: do not issue visas to those without proper documents. But as Sugihara looked into those faces, mothers with infants, fathers with trembling hands, young men who had seen too much too soon, he realized that sometimes the paper is not the law. The heart is. He wrote one visa, then another. Soon his hand moved like a small machine of mercy. For 30 days, he and his wife Yukiko wrote from dawn until nightfall, inking thousands of names by hand. When his wrist ached, she massaged it. When his pen ran dry, she filled the ink. They knew the risk. A single telegram could end his career or his life. Yet he kept writing. Each signature was a quiet rebellion, not against his country, but against fear. Not against authority, but against the shrinking of the human heart. Years later, when asked why he did it, Sugihara simply said, "They were human beings. I had to help." There was no philosophy lecture, no heroic flourish, just clarity. And that is what the Buddha called right action. Right action is not obedience to rules, but alignment with reality, to see clearly that every being seeks to be free from pain, and to act from that understanding. When our mind is free from greed, anger, and delusion, our actions naturally flow in a way that harms none. But right action does not always come wrapped in applause. More often, it comes wrapped in consequences. When the war ended, Sugihara did not return as a hero. He returned to Japan as a dismissed diplomat, carrying only 2 suitcases and a family to feed. The government stripped him of his title. Neighbors whispered. For a time, he took whatever work he could find, packing light bulbs, selling tangerines, working as a translator for small firms far below his skill. Imagine that. A man who saved thousands quietly riding a bicycle to a low-wage job so he could afford rice for dinner. And yet, those who knew him said he never complained. Not once. There was a softness to him, as if the inner reward of his actions had settled like a still lake inside his chest. His son once said, "My father lived simply, but he was peaceful." This is what the Buddha meant when he said that the mind shaped by compassion becomes spacious. Even when the world does not reward us, the heart knows what it has done. Many years later, long after Sugihara believed the world had forgotten him, something remarkable happened. A group of Jewish survivors, men and women who owed their lives to those handwritten visas, began searching for him. Some had been children when they fled Europe. Some had lost entire families but were alive because a Japanese man had refused to let bureaucratic rules drown their hope. They gathered stories, traced old documents, and eventually found him living quietly in a small apartment in Japan. And then, one by one, they came to meet him. Elderly men with trembling hands. Women who had raised children and grandchildren because of a signature he once wrote with an aching wrist. Some brought letters. Some brought tears. All brought gratitude. They called themselves Sugihara's Jews. In Israel, trees were planted in his honor. A ceremony was held. For the first time in decades, his quiet act was spoken of not as disobedience, but as courage. When Sugihara stood before the people he had saved, he didn't give a speech. He didn't boast. He bowed his head, shy and humble, as if receiving a gift he did not think he deserved. And yet, in that gathering, in those grateful faces, a truth unfolded gently. Right action always returns, even if it takes a lifetime to circle back. Right action isn't dramatic in most of our lives. It isn't about saving thousands, it's about how we show up in the smallest moments. How we speak to our partner when we are tired. How we treat a stranger when we are rushed. How we decide when no one is watching. Every choice is a brushstroke painting the portrait of our character. The Buddha described right action as abstaining from killing, from stealing, and from sexual misconduct. But beyond the literal, it means choosing the way of non-harm in every field of life. To refrain from violence not only with our hands, but with our words. To avoid taking what is not freely given, not just objects, but time, trust, and dignity. To honor relationships by keeping the heart truthful and the intent clear. Right action is a discipline of the heart. It asks for presence before impulse and honesty before habit. Sometimes it's the decision to walk away from a profitable deal that feels wrong. Sometimes it's the courage to say, I was wrong. Sometimes it's the quiet refusal to turn away when someone's suffering asks for us. After losing his career, Sugihara lived in modest obscurity. No salary, no applause, no rank. But when asked near the end of his life whether he regretted it, he smiled gently and said, I do not regret anything. I did what I had to do. That is the peace of right action. A peace that does not depend on being praised or understood. A peace that comes from knowing we did not betray our own heart. Perhaps this is the lesson for us now, in quieter times, but no less complex ones. We don't face wars on every corner, but we do face 1,000 small choices that test our integrity. How we earn our living, how we speak online, how we respond when others are judged or hurt. Every moment is a chance to write our own visa of compassion. When we pause before acting, we see more clearly. When we see clearly, we act more kindly. And when we act kindly, the world, invisible at first, begins to change its texture around us. Maybe the purpose of right action isn't to save the world in one sweep, but to keep it from hardening one moment at a time. So as you move through your day, ask yourself quietly, what is being asked of me right now? What is the most harmless, most honest thing I can do? And can I do it without needing thanks? Because in the end, right action is not what we do once, but what we practice until it becomes our nature. To move through the world like Sugihara's pen, steady, compassionate, and quietly brave.